good, YouTube? I appreciate y'all tuning back in. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on any new episodes. For this one, it was a really nice day outside, so I figured I would record some of what I'm doing in the garden. I'm gonna just give some updates about how the gardening and everything is going so far. So in this video, it should be pretty informative, but I'll try to keep it real short. But what I want to do is I want to explain the 3 concepts that I'm going to use to increase my harvest, or it's just 3 concepts that you can use and apply as well to make your harvest as big as possible. So what I'll do in this video is I'll briefly just describe the 3 concepts that I'm going to use, and then I'll flip the camera around and show how I'm going to actually apply them. So getting right into it, the 3 concepts that I'm going to use is square foot gardening, the next one is companion planting, and the next one is succession planting. So the first one, square foot gardening, the concept of this is really just to be able to plant as much as possible in the least amount of space as possible. So like the name suggests, you would basically base it off of a square foot of space. So like a 1 foot by 1 foot small space in your garden bed. I'll do a little bit more of an explanation and description once I flip the camera around of how I'm going to apply it, but that's from a real general and basic perspective, is planting the most of a specific plant that you can plant in that small amount of space. The second thing is companion planting. So the concept of companion planting is just planting seeds and planting plants along with other plants that have like a mutually beneficial relationship. So one that I know right off the bat is tomatoes and carrots. So I don't know all the scientific specifics about it, but I know that carrots and tomatoes kind of give off different nutrients from each other in the root area that kind of help each other grow, and it also affects like the flavor of carrots. It can also be, depending on what plants that you plant together, it can also be like a form of natural pest control. But like I said, I'll go over that a little bit later as well. And then the last thing is succession planting. So the concept of succession planting is to basically have a perpetual harvest. So if you know that one plant, it takes 50 days for it to go from seed to being able to harvest that vegetable, and you know your growing season is 200 days, in my case it is, you should be able to plant and you should be able to harvest that specific plant at least 3 or 4 times during that growing season. So I'll show how to really apply it and describe it, but I'm gonna go ahead and flip the camera around now and show what I did from a planning perspective. I'll show like the specifics and how you can get some of the information that you need just straight from the seed package, and then I'll also show how I went ahead and gridded out my garden bed so I can start planting things, because it's starting to get about that time where we can go ahead and start planting some of the plants outside. So I'm gonna go ahead and flip the camera around now, and then I'll show how you can apply these 3 concepts and hopefully have as large of a harvest as possible. Before I go over to the garden bed to show how I plan to apply all of those concepts, just wanted to show progress on how I'm doing with the stones. So it was kind of rainy over the past few, maybe really the past week, but it's been warm the last couple of days, so I was able to get a good amount of them done. So I would say probably about half of them are in the ground and level. These are straight, like these 4, and then this pretty much this whole line right here is straight too, and then in the ground and level as well too. But then I just have to straighten these out and then put a couple more of them in the ground. But just wanted to show a little bit of progress on that, so I should be able to get that done within the next day or so, hopefully by the end of the day, maybe tomorrow. So before I show the actual garden bed and what it looks like, I want to show exactly how I planned and just drew it out before I actually plant anything out there. So I have 3 garden beds. I know the direction that they're in right now, so I'll put the direction there. That's going to be a little bit important in a second. I'll explain that in a second. And then I wrote down everything that I wanted to plant in the garden bed, and then some of the stuff that I'll just keep in pots. And then I have 1 seed package right here just for carrots, so I can explain some of the concepts that I'm going to apply. So this is what really made me really kind of fall in love with gardening and growing your own food, because I think it's amazing that you can really just grow this amount of food, for yourself, instead of having to buy it from somebody else, and they put who knows what into it. So with the carrots, I'm just use these just because it's a pretty easy way to explain the concept. So on the back of a lot of these seed packages, you can see exactly what you should do with the carrot and or any vegetable, and how to take care of it. So this little marker right here gives real like comprehensive like facts that you can use to kind of take care of it. So 10 to 25 days to emerge, that means just 10 to 25 days to germinate. Right there, the seed depth is 1/4 of an inch. Let's see if it's a better focus. The seed spacing is 1 inch. So the seed spacing is 1 inch, and the row spacing is 6 inches. The thinning is 1 inch tall, thin to 1 every 3 inches, and the maturity is 65 days. So just a quick rundown of what that means. It describes how long it takes to germinate, how deep you should plant the seed, how far away you should plant the seeds, how far away you should plant the rows from each other, and then how to thin it once it gets to a certain height or a certain level, and then how long it takes before you would be harvesting the carrots. So I just apply all those details to be able to plant them. So what I first see with the thinning part, it says when 1 inch tall, thin to 1 every 3 inches. So, you know, using that math, that means I can plant 16 carrots, or I can harvest 16 carrots in 1 square foot of space, hopefully. And then the maturity is 65 days. So after 65 days of me planting a carrot seed, I should be harvesting a carrot. So if I know those 2 things, then I know that I should be able to have multiple harvests. So in my growing area, the growing season is 204 days, I believe. So I should be able to harvest at least 3 to 4 times during that growing season if I plant them in succession. And then if I plant it using the square foot gardening method, then I should be able to harvest 16 carrots every square foot of planting carrot seeds. Hopefully that makes sense. And I'll show a chart that I use as well, and that you can use too, that you don't have to apply any of the math. You can just look at the chart and then it'll tell you exactly what to plant. And some will even tell you the days of maturity as well too, but this is just a quick way to look on the seeds. And then going down to the chart, so you know, tomatoes, like I said, tomatoes and carrots, they're good companion plants and they're good to plant together. I'm sorry if y'all can hear that sound. It's a car driving by. Hopefully it'll, you know, get a little bit quieter, but as you can see right there, it's the tomato plants and the carrots right beside each other. And this is where I do have to apply the direction a little bit as well. The sun kind of goes on the southern part of the house, and really the southern part of any house if you're in a certain part of the world, at least my part anyway. But the sun will go on this side. So the plants that you need to have a lot of sunlight for, and the plants that are taller, you want to put them on the northern side. That way they're going to grow tall, so they'll always get the sun. And then these plants right here, they're a little bit closer to the ground. They might need access to the sun. They'll still be able to get it without compromising, you know, any other plants' ability to get sun. So that's why I use the direction and just got the little compass right there. But then I just applied it to all of the garden beds. And then, like I said, just really combine pepper plants, you know, basil, sage, rosemary. Those are good companion plants with them, and I think those are good, you know, forms of pest control as well, because they're aromatic plants and herbs. So, you know, hopefully they can work together and, you know, kind of build up off of each other. But that's really the concept. That's how you really apply those 3 different concepts in a pretty simple way. It looks like a lot on paper, but you know, once you just kind of plan it ahead of time and really just apply it, it really can kind of be a real easy process to stay on track with. So I'm gonna zoom in and I'm gonna show what this garden bed right here looks like, just grid it off and exactly how I did it. And then I'll show how to plant into the different intervals as well. So like 1 plant per square foot, or 4 plants per square foot, or 9 or 16, how to plant each one, how to space them out properly. So what I'll do, this is what a garden bed looks like, but what I'll probably do is just make a how-to video to show exactly how I did it. It's real simple. If you're able to measure off and use a power drill, then I mean, you can do it within 30 minutes or less. But this is what it looks like, and I'll zoom into each square so you can see, you know, how I'll be able to measure off how far I'll plant things apart from each other. But typically with the amount of space that I have, it typically would be like 8 squares by 4 squares this way for 32 square feet of growing space. What I ended up doing is, and I did it on purpose just so I can have like a little bit of a buffer and just extra space per square, is I did it by 7 squares, or 7, you know, equal parts the long ways, and then still 4 this way. So it's a little bit bigger than a square foot of space, and I just did that just so I can have extra room to, you know, make sure I have enough room to be able to keep each plant as healthy as possible at the same time. So all I did was I just marked it off. I used just tape measure, marked it off in equal spots, you know, a foot from each other, just from this part right here all the way just a foot here, and then another foot there, right there for the next string. And then I just screwed the string into the wood as well, just so it'll stay like real tight and snug. And I just weaved it in and out the long ways, and then I did the same thing the short ways as well. So if you should be able to see that it's 1 square, like it's roughly a square foot of space, and it's pretty squared off and pretty equal throughout the entire part. So going back to what I was saying about the carrots, if I know that I can grow 16 square feet or 16 carrots per square foot of space, That means in this just one square, I should be able to grow 16 different carrots. And 65 days to harvest, I should be able to harvest carrots from that spot, you know, multiple times throughout that growing season. So if you think about it, that's just one square, and I have 28 squares right here. So if I wanted to do all carrots, just multiply that, whatever you get just from that 1 square foot of carrots, and multiply that by 28, and that's essentially, you know, theoretically at least, what you will be able to, you know, grow in the amount of space that you have. So that's kind of how I'm applying the concepts. Like I said, I'll zoom in and show how to plant and space it properly, and then I'll probably make a how-to video to, you know, grid off the garden bed the same way I did this one. I'll probably make like more of like a time-lapse video to show how to do it on that one, or I might, you know, show it on my other one over there, you know, through the tree. So that's pretty much the concept of doing it. I'm gonna zoom in real quick and then show, you know, how to properly space them as well. So now that it's zoomed in, as you can see, this is essentially a square foot of space right here. So this will be an example of only being able to plant 1 plant per square foot. So things like tomatoes or peppers or kale or broccoli, different things like that. There's a few others as well. They can only have 1 per square foot. So here you see it's just 1 hole directly in the middle. So it's as far as away as possible from, you know, if there was another thing that had to be 1, you know, square foot away, you know, you can plant it. It'll still literally be a foot away. In my case, it'll be a little bit extra of a little bit extra past a foot away. So that will be for 1. So if you could plant 4, hopefully my shadow is not blocking it off too much, but if you can plant 4, then that's how you would space it out. So it's still equally spaced away from each other. So if on the package it says then to every 6 inches, I believe that's whenever you can plant, you know, 4 in the box. So going down the line, there's other ones that can go for 9. So I think beets are one that you can do 9 per square feet. So this is how many beets you will be able to harvest in 1 square foot of space. And whatever the days of maturity is, that's the amount of time you will be able to harvest them. And then if you plant them over and over again every couple weeks, you'll essentially be able to harvest them, not literally forever, but I mean kind of forever. And then carrots, like I said, was 16 per square foot. So you can see how I fit 16 different holes, because carrots are pretty much one big root, and when you harvest, you're harvesting the entire plant really. So that space will really be ready to start growing things again. Put a little bit of compost in there, put maybe some plant food or whatever, mix it up a little bit, and you're ready to go again. But that's how 16 would fit right there in just 1 square foot of garden space. So like I said, if you multiply just 16 times 28, you know, that'll give you just 1 in 65 days how many carrots you should be able to harvest. You know, multiply that by 2 or 3 times if you're able to, you know, continue to plant them over and over again, and you can just imagine how much food you'd be able to, you know, truly grow. So I'm gonna show a how-to video on how to do it and how to mark it off. It's a pretty simple process. If you can use a drill and tape measure, you should be, you know, good to go to be able to do it. But those are the concepts that I'm apply. I've never been this aggressive with gardening, but I feel like, you know, I got to challenge myself if I really want to be able to be self-sufficient within the next, you know, couple years or so. So appreciate y'all tuning in. If you made it this far, then I definitely appreciate you tuning in. The information that I'm giving in the videos comes from, you know, the last couple years of experience in making mistakes and applying different concepts, and also doing my own research as well. For example, there's an author named Mel Bartholomew, I think is his name, who has a book strictly on square foot gardening. So that's something I think is definitely a good investment if you want to be able to take your garden to the next level. But if you appreciate the video or appreciate the info that I'm giving in my videos, I definitely ask that you like the videos, share them with your friends, subscribe to the channel as well, and turn your notifications on so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Next week, what I plan on doing is going into a little bit more detail about caring for your seedlings, since we planted some seeds a couple weeks ago. I just want to show some of the things that you can do to care for your seedlings, to keep them as healthy as possible, feeding them, and making sure that they're ready to go once it's time to plant them outside. They have the best chance possible to continue to be a great plant and give you as good of a harvest as possible. But until next time, peace.